Okay, so I'm going to share with you three short stories. They're personal stories, and what I would like you to think of while I'm sharing them with you is to see what was the source of the challenge I was facing. Okay, so as I was growing up in school and at home, I was a very timid girl. When my parents would go to school to ask what the progress had been, my teachers would always say, oh, she's an excellent student, great marks, no problem. It's just that she's very, very shy and she doesn't really want to talk in class. And we're wondering whether there's something wrong there. She's very sensitive. So as I was growing older, I started to collect all these labels on me. Shy, timid, sensitive, oversensitive often. And when I was 21, I was still studying in Athens University. I was also working for a company, a group, a drinks and food company, quite a big one in Greece. And I was called to go and present at a sales conference up north my marketing plan. I was an assistant brand manager with some brands which were not as important as the brands that other people had in the department, in the marketing department, but still I had been given a budget, a marketing budget, and I had to present what the plan was going to be. So we all went up as a team, as a marketing team, and I entered this big conference room with all the buzzing salespeople talking very energetically, and then the conference started. So up goes the senior brand manager, almost my age, a little bit older actually, and he just was so confident on the stage. He was using his PowerPoint, he was going up and down, no need for a podium, no need for notes. He was brilliant. I was so envious of him. I was looking, wow, in admiration, yes, not envy. And then the next one went up. She was brilliant too. And the next one, and the next one. And last, it was my turn. So I was already gasping for air. I thought I had practiced all night, the previous night. I thought that was what you were supposed to do, because I hadn't been taught how to present before. So this was my first time presenting, and to an audience of 200 people. So my legs just went like jelly. I don't know if it's ever happened to you. I almost tripped on the wires on the stage. I put my things in front of the podium. I looked down at the audience and there was a huge blank. It was just absolutely black because, of course, all the lights were on the stage, so I couldn't see anybody at the bottom. So then I started, because I had rehearsed, especially the first part of my speech, that went okay. And then suddenly I had blurred vision. I couldn't see what my notes were saying. And my mind just blacked out completely. There was a murmur in the audience. I could hear them saying things. It was those seconds, it was for a second, I think, that it happened. They told me later. But for me, it was like 10 minutes of my life, just wanting to be disappeared, just wanting to go somewhere under the carpet, nowhere to be seen, in shame. So that was one story that I want to share with you. And then the other story is about my first managerial post. So later I went to Britain to study and get an MBA. And my first job was non-managerial, but my second job, when I was 26 years old, I was given to manage a team of 7 people. So we were in a very small space, office area. I was in the middle and everybody was around. It was an open plan office. And I just took out my MBA books and tried to remember, how do you set targets? How do you motivate people? How do you communicate? You know, all from these books that I had read, because I had never done it before. I had no idea, not a clue. So, you know, the MBA courses normally show you that you have to be very clear with your targets, and then you motivate people to achieve targets. So I thought, okay, that's what I'll do. So one of the ladies, Jane, she was older than me actually, and she was a mother of 2 children, 2 very young children. So she would often come in the morning late, and some days she would call in and say that her little boy was ill and that she couldn't come to the office. In those days, teleworking was not all that popular, so that was out of the question. So I was getting really anxious because her work was falling behind. Other people had to cover up for her work, or I had to cover up for her work. And I just was getting very frustrated, and I obviously showed my frustration. Next, we had John, who was much younger than me, just finished university, and he had no idea how to work, or he didn't also have a work ethic in the sense of what I had read in the MBA textbooks. So I was furious with him too, and I showed my fury. And then I had another 5 people around me. Some didn't know what to do, so they were waiting for me to tell them what the next thing was. Others were going ahead, forward, and overproducing, or without asking me, making serious mistakes, because they would go to a different department and ask for something that wasn't supposed to be asked, or whatever. So it was a real mess. And I say that it is due to my lack of management, mainly, because I'm not going to blame myself completely, but mainly because of my ill management. These 7 people either asked to be transferred to a different department, or actually left the company completely and went on to different jobs. So I lost my first team of 7. So what do you think was missing? What was going on? What was the source in these stories that I told you? The first one, maybe?
Maybe you didn't have experience in that area. Nobody taught you how to do a presentation, for example.
I would say practice, yes, the same as experience. Philippa, thank you. Confidence, thank you. I'm reading connection. Yes, connection, confidence. So confidence is linked to beliefs that we have, which are limiting. They stop us, and we usually get them when we are young, and we very rarely release them because we don't even understand the effect they have on our being. So confidence, lack of connection.
Courage to speak, because the professors were saying that you were shy, you don't speak a lot.
Yes, indeed, you're right. Okay, and Samatakis Andres is saying experience, okay. Brilliant. So what about the next story, the one where I was managing a team? What was happening there?
I think that you shouldn't have expressed your anger first, and maybe you should have tried to be in their shoes. I don't know if it's the correct expression.
Yes. In
well,
their
I would
shoes.
like to say this expression that Lucille just mentions. I think it's called empathy.
We will see in a minute what it's actually called, because empathy is a misunderstood word, I think. That's my view. But we will see this in a minute. So it's about building, developing emotional intelligence. You probably already know what emotional intelligence is. There's an awful lot of literature around as to what emotional intelligence is. This is the basic model that I use, especially when I train students on emotional intelligence and leadership. It's one of the most simple of models. It has 4 facets, which are interlinking. The first is self-knowledge, knowing your emotions, trusting yourself, knowing your boundaries, knowing your potential. So being fair in evaluation, fairness, be a fair evaluator of your abilities. Well, self-management has to do with managing emotions, self-control, integrity, the adaptability, initiative, and being positive in life, having a positive outlook, because our brain, as you will see further down, has a negativity bias. We tend to go towards the negative. And social awareness is the third particle of emotional intelligence, which has to do with reading the environment and the people around us. And then we have relationship management, which is the fourth area, which has to do with team spirit, adopting a team spirit, networking, being able to manage conflict and crises, especially when they're related to people, which normally they are related to people, be an inspiration and a guide to others, and also help with change, become a change agent. So this is what we will be looking at tonight. Why do we develop emotional intelligence? And that's point B, where it is that I want us to go tonight, the purpose. The second is, what is the starting point of developing emotional intelligence? How do we start developing it? Where do we start? So point A. And the third has to do with how do we do it? And it's basically the strategy, which is the line, the black line that connects point A to point B. And we will have, I will show you one technique at the end. And it should be interesting, I think. That one technique combines a lot of the elements of emotional intelligence at once. And at the end, I hope we will have time to share views. So why is it important to develop emotional intelligence? The why, for me, is important to talk about the purpose, especially when we're about to learn something. We need to know the overall context, where that sits. Okay, so what is the purpose of doing this? So right now, the way I see things is that 80% of our planet is actually living in fear, in a state of flight or fight, much like in a survival mode, trying to survive the situation. The thing is, and this is my view, that the situation, the circumstance, is not just COVID-19. That is the tip of the iceberg. What is really happening is a technological revolution. In fact, it has been happening 10 years now, but it has been accelerated by COVID, because we've had to, most of us, start working online. So this has been accelerated. And the rate of increase is going to take us into very, very quickly into a very different age, an age of artificial intelligence, 5G, and you know better, because I have a lot of students here tonight, so the students know, can feel the future more than I can probably. So for the page of humanity to turn in a non-violent way, so that for us to flow into the next stage of our evolution as humanity, and this is the big picture I'm talking about, it is my belief that we need to switch modes and transcend the situation. So try and flow from survival mode to thriving mode. And the only way we can actually thrive is if we do this together. So it's we all thrive together. And in my view, it's about trying to thrive in such a way that we start focusing on becoming active leaders, self-leaders. So global active citizens, in a sense. And by global, I don't mean covering the geographic location of the whole planet, but I mean looking to see how we can cooperate with each other, even in our microcosm, instead of just taking care of our family and our loved ones and our work colleagues. So it's more about looking from inside out rather than from outside in, because up until now, I feel most of us are looking from outside in. So really being introvert rather than extrovert, but extrovert in the sense of being in your center first, yeah? Because if you just extrovert, then you're missing the point, you're missing your center. So the starting point, and we will see this with emotional intelligence, developing the skills of emotional intelligence, for me is the question, who am I? Okay, who am I? Who truly am I? Know thyself, Socrates used to say, and it's such a simple phrase, but so difficult to comprehend and start working on that. So this is the big picture, okay? So now I will go down, I will chunk it down to the small picture. So first of all, we have the research that shows, and we also know, intrinsically know, that happy employees equals effective employees. So in the workplace, we know that job satisfaction is an important factor for a long-term sustainable company, sustainability. And also, the second situation that we're facing at the moment, down here in the smaller picture, here on Earth, is that problems have started to become much more complex. And actually, that's quite fortunate for us, humans, because as Derry Hannam, an education reformist in Britain, has said, and many other people, especially in the business area, in order for us to be able to thrive as human beings in the workplace, we need to have skills that machines cannot have. So we need to be different from machines, and that is to do with the skill sets that we have in order to be able to resolve complex problems. So for example, a machine, at least right now, this moment in time, I will not make a forecast of the future because I don't know what will happen in the future. At least now, even through artificial intelligence, it's not possible to resolve a conflict. Of course, online mediation is very much being developed at the moment. So some forms of conflicts, which are to do with purchases, for example, online purchases, can be even now resolved online automatically from special software programs. But conflicts, for example, between a household, like a divorce or child care, cannot yet be resolved. You need human intervention. You need skillful people, especially people who are skilled in soft skills. So that is a positive side of the chunking down picture. So what I'd like to share with you now is a quick video of one, in my opinion, a very inspirational leader, business leader, He's not anymore on earth, but he was my mentor, and you will see why.
Yes, we can.
Thank you.
Welcome to CNN World Report, where we bring you uncensored stories from around the world. I'm Guillermo Arduino in Atlanta. Coming up, online search engine company Google allows its employees to bring dogs to work. And elevators are replaced by slides at the offices of the Red Bull energy drink company in London. As ERT explains, a business in Greece is taking friendly work environments to an entirely new level.
This is not your average Greek company. This is Piscine Ideal, and it has won Greece's Best Place to Work award for the past 2 years. 115 lucky employees work for the company, or as its CEO, Stelios Stavridis, refers to them, 115 leaders.
We want each one of us to be a leader and an entrepreneur. We want people to feel free to express their opinion. We want them to be very creative. We want them to continuously learn, and we want them to learn how to adapt to change.
Piscine Ideal is no stranger to awards. This year alone, it won the I Am a Person award, a prestigious distinction for the way a company treats its employees.
Most companies require that you wear a tie to work. However, in this company, bringing your bathing suit is mandatory. Look at what I mean. Alex, what is it exactly you're doing here?
I'm testing the wireless network to make sure it's fully operational in all facilities of the company, even here by the swimming pool.
The company that sells swimming pools as well as spas allows its employees to indulge in luxuries like these while working.
It's about promoting creativity and helping maintain your work and life balance.
Company policy also favors leaner and healthier employees. That means a 2% pay rise for those who manage to lose 12% of their total body weight. The same goes for those who quit smoking. Benefits like these have people from all corners of the globe applying for jobs at the company. Take Mylène Weiss, who left a life in France for a job here.
It's a great team. We all are really united. We're a huge family. Everybody has the same opportunities to excel.
Alexandros worked in New York for several years before returning to Greece.
We all feel that we're part of a large family. Our company's slogan is one team, one dream, and we all work together to get the job done.
One team, one dream. At the end of the day, human relations is what makes this company the best place to work. Will Vasilopoulos, ERT, for CNN World Report.
I wish my bosses would let me work from the swimming pool. In the end, we are also like a large family as well. Well, that's all for today's show.
One team, one dream. Happy, satisfied employees. Huge productivity. And all of them leaders. So a few facts on emotional intelligence. Why emotional intelligence? 90% of top performers have high emotional intelligence levels. According to Dr. Travis Bradbury, who's one of the leading experts on emotional intelligence, 58% of our job performance is responsible, and I would argue more than that, for our emotional intelligence level, and salaries can be quite high when we are more emotionally intelligent, because we can climb the hierarchy if that is what we want to do in a company. So these are some of the benefits. I will allow you to just glance quickly through them, because all this is available online. There's plenty of stuff online. I just want to go on to discuss exactly how we develop emotional intelligence traits. So what I was saying before, it's important to start moving from the I survive, to the we thrive all together, and then back to the I, to transmute it from I survive to I thrive. So emotional intelligence has to do mainly with the top part, which has to do with self-awareness and self-knowledge. Then when we have this in our base, it's the bedrock, we are able to be more successful in managing our emotions and more successful in reading the environment and the people around us. And then, of course, more successful in handling our relationships in a resonant way. So, in the words of one of my teachers, Greg Braden, we are entering the age of meeting ourselves again. So it's going back into the center in order to come out in a different way. So this is what I was saying before. I thrive and create, becoming a self-leader. So the motivation from within, and then we can all be leaders. And this is my belief that there's no copping out. We can all be leaders from our own seat, from whatever it is that we are doing. And this is the purpose, this is the value of developing emotional intelligence. So the way I have studied emotional intelligence, and I have developed it over the years, is seeing it as an inclusive part of being a compassionate leader. So I have called this leadership model a heart-led model, leading from the heart. And it has three components, of which you can see that emotional intelligence is one. It also has the self-leadership skills, which are slightly different and complementary to emotional intelligence skills. And the leadership style has to do with compassion. We will see in a minute what compassion is. This is what the model looks like. You can see it's very similar. It's got 4 facets, 4 parts, but they're slightly more dynamic. So we have self-exploration instead of static self-knowledge. We have self-influence instead of self-management. So it's the dynamic pushing from within to influence the way we behave, the way we are, the way we think and feel. Systemic awareness. So it's not just the environmental awareness, it's looking at everything as a system. We are part of a system, and the system that we are looking at is also part of a larger system. So this holistic approach to life and every facet of life, work life included, is very important to have. And then relational influence. It's all about influencing, helping, cooperating, being active, having a global perspective in whatever it is that we do. And all this is set in a bed of mindfulness, because without mindfulness, none of these elements can actually work together. And you can see self-compassion is a key element of self-exploration. And this is going to be the starting point for our quest in developing emotional intelligence skills. Underneath this is what we say emotional intelligence, yes? So it sits underneath this model, the heart-led model. So just in order to clear things, because you might think that compassion is being oversensitive, yes? No, compassion is a very misunderstood word. It is often confused with empathy. Empathy is part of compassion, but compassion is even more dynamic. And I'm sure that it will be something that if you haven't related to, you will try to develop in yourselves. This is a huge leadership trait. It's a key trait nowadays. So there are 3 steps, but they're very interrelated, so it's difficult to segregate them. The first is the ability to step into another's shoes. So imagine how they feel, what they need, what's happening in their thoughts, yes? What their life has been. The second is the ability to momentarily, and I would want to emphasize the word momentarily, feel the pain of the other, because we don't want to be in the pain. So I would say that empathy has to do with the second step of compassion. And the third important step is taking action, yes, but action appropriately. So it's not always the case that we need to do something. Sometimes we need to take a step back and allow this person who is suffering to empower themselves to find the solution on their own. So compassion is not about being mushy and huggy and, oh, you poor thing. Yeah, so we don't stop at the empathy level. We need to get back out again, connect our brain with our heart. So use this heart-brain coherence and act appropriately. Okay, so here's what an awarded compassion advocate said. He was recently awarded as one of the most compassionate CEOs in the world. He says, managing compassionately is not just a better way to build a team, it's a better way to build a company. So who do you think said this? Any guesses? It's difficult to guess because I've researched and you haven't on this particular subject, so it's unfair to ask. So this was actually what Jeff Weiner recently said at CBC News in America, and he is the executive chairman of LinkedIn. And he has created a compassionate project in which many other companies, especially the high-tech companies, are participating, the well-known high-tech companies. So he explains how he used to be. Non-compassionate behavior from him was, though I wasn't a yeller, I was pretty intense. If I saw something in a presentation that didn't make sense, I would barrage the team with questions. I'd listen with the intent to reply and not to seek to understand. I expected other people to do things the way I did and grew frustrated when they didn't. Does this remind you of someone? My second story. Over time, I realized how unproductive this approach was. Rather than inspire and lift people up, it was a good way to shut people down. And this is what he decided to do, to change, become compassionate. So I vowed that as long as I'd be responsible for managing other people, I would aspire to manage compassionately. That meant pausing and being a spectator to my own thoughts, especially when getting emotional. It meant walking a mile in the other person's shoes and understanding their hopes, their fears, their strengths, and their weaknesses. And it meant doing everything within my power to set them up to be successful. So this is from the business world. The business world is now realizing the importance of being a compassionate leader. So how is it that we get from point A to point B? So how do we go from I survive to I thrive, and then we all thrive? You can see the arrow, we all thrive is two-sided. So what is the starting point to develop emotional intelligence? And this is what I want to focus on particularly. I remind you the model. So we have these facets. So for me, the starting point is that you can't pour from an empty cup. You have to take care of your needs first. It's like being on the airplane. They announce that we need to put our mask on first if we are parents, and then put the mask on to our children. Because if we can't breathe, our children won't be able to breathe sooner or later. So the starting point is self-exploration, but self-exploration under the spotlight of self-compassion and mindfulness. So it's about self-exploration and clearing inner obstacles. That is the starting point. Because no matter how many courses we go on, how many times we sit in a classroom, how many books we read, or how many YouTube we see on how to develop certain skills, especially the soft skills, especially the emotional intelligence skills, until we clear our subconscious mind, because it's all very subconscious, of limiting beliefs and any rubbish that is in there, we are going to find it very difficult to actually practice what we learn. It's as if you are, well, riding a bicycle, I guess. Let me just see, where is this? Yeah, it's like riding a bicycle. You have to actually ride the bicycle, no matter how many instructions you read, by not getting on the bike and falling down maybe 100 times, you will never learn how to ride a bike. So that is the first area. That's the starting point. And this leads us to accessing our own truth, our real self, our wisdom, because wisdom is very different from knowledge, as you already know. And that will help us to speak our truth. So once our voice is heard, we can actually lead from the heart. We can actually become leaders, until which time we truly express ourselves. So our voice comes out. Unless we do this, we cannot stand out and thrive. We will never thrive unless we come out of our shell and offer the world what we have to offer. So self-compassion, if we relate it to the idea of compassion, it's exactly the same, but it's looking inwards. So the other is ourself. So the first stage is insight, the ability to step into our past self's shoes without judgment, no blame, no regret. The second is to feel, so have empathy for ourselves, the ability to momentarily feel our own pain. And the third stage is to actually separate our true self from our thoughts and emotions. Because one major difference, and what the heart-led model adds to emotional intelligence, is that thoughts matter at this stage more than emotions, because it's our thoughts that create the emotions. So it's our thoughts and our beliefs about ourselves and the world around us that creates our reality, how we see things. And that is when all the other three facets of emotional intelligence go wrong, no matter what we do. If we don't clear our subconscious brain, then we cannot be successful in developing our emotional intelligence skills. So how do we actually do it? As I said, experiential learning is key. It's all implicit. So if you want to learn how to cook, by reading the best cookbooks in the world, you will not learn. You have to practice them, and it takes time. It's not something immediate. So patience is required, and I can say that from my own experience, I have bettered, not developed, not yet finished developing my emotional intelligence skills by going on long retreats with Buddhists, for example, and sitting on the pillow, meditating, mindfully meditating for like 8 hours a day, 15 days in a row, going into silence for long times, going to the vision quest or council in nature. So sitting in nature or being on my own in a tent with no food for 5 days in order to be able to just concentrate on myself. So these experiences have been very powerful, and these are what helped me shift and get to know who I truly am. So I'm not saying that training normal training does not add to this, but experiential training is key. And this is, of course, the major challenge for people who train on soft skills, how to do this online. So self-exploration has to do with actually, first of all, breathing, because our breath is what brings us to the now. It's what makes us be mindful and aware. So mindful is being careful if you're cutting carrots in a house, not to be chopped by the knife. And aware is being aware, if you're a mother of 3, what is going on in the environment. So while you're actually being careful not to cut your finger off with a knife, knowing what's happening. So being mindful, focused in what you're doing, but also aware of the environment. And this takes practice. And the focus of attention in mindfulness meditation, which is one of the ways to do this, is focusing on your breath. Self-exploration with compassion, I must say, that's why I've got the little heart at the top, is about identifying limiting beliefs, emotions, what are our key top values, our needs, our potential, and then clearing the subconscious mind, clearing inner obstacles, very important before we do anything else. And of course, having a positive mindset, self-care and self-compassion, it has to do with focusing on our qualities and not so much on our shadow side. We do not put it aside, but the main focus needs to be on what are we good at, that we are enough. And this is a lovely affirmation to be able to say every day, I am enough. Because most of us feel that there's a little part of us missing, or that there's some malfunction in the way we are, whether it's to do with our weight, our hair, the way we speak, how fast we solve a mathematical problem, what our relationships are with the opposite sex or the same sex, and all sorts of other things. So I am enough is a powerful affirmation to help us focus. So being in the now helps us have an eagle's view of what is happening around us. So we see things from above. Actually, when I meditate, when I do mindful meditation, because there are thousands of different types of meditations, when I do mindful meditation, I feel that somehow I can see myself doing it. So I've got this feeling that I'm outside and I'm watching myself. I'm watching the whole of my life, my emotions, my needs, my neuroses, yes, because we all have our little ways of doing things which annoy other people. So it's wonderful to have this view in a very caring,
more aware,
passionate way.
Right?
Yes, becoming more aware. It's awareness. That's right. Thank you. And of course, we also become aware that it's our reality. It's not true. What we can see, it's through our filters. Yes, it's different for everybody. Reality is different for everybody. And it starts very much with what we have chosen our values in life to be and what our beliefs are, especially our limiting beliefs. So our perception of reality depends on these key areas, values and beliefs. And by sitting in silence with ourselves, without our mobiles, without our family, without any distraction, even for 10 minutes every day, makes a huge difference in many areas of our life. I encourage you to research what is the value of mindful meditation. So it helps us be more in charge of the control panel. This is a movie, Inside Out, one of my favorite movies. which actually shows how emotions can take over and how memories are stored and what memories do to our emotions. And the key is for us to remain the master of our mind, yes, not to be mindless. So it's like riding a horse. When we are in charge of our thoughts, we're also in charge of our emotions. And it's like not letting go of the reins of the horse, but not holding them very tight, very strictly, in a caring and compassionate way, so that we don't stride off the path or the horse runs off in one direction. So self-influence and self-management, I resemble as riding a horse, being in a seat, upright, riding and holding the reins in control. So the mindset of this starting point of starting with a self-exploration in a compassionate way is just like a lotus flower. This is one of my favorite symbols. You may have seen a previous lecture of mine. I used it before. The lotus flower, as most of you know, grows within the mud. So especially in these days, we need to be able to transcend and see the light, see the beauty of life, seek it out so that we thrive instead of just survive. And it's all about taking a few moments per day in silence. So shutting the outside world out so that you can cater, you can listen to this inner voice. Go into your center, be back in Alaya. Alaya in Sanskrit means home, returning home. That's why the mountains are called Himalaya. Himalaya. So this is the center of our attention. And this is what should be our center of our attention in developing any skills. Our inner world. Coherence between the brain and the heart is very important. The control panel, being in control, not being controlled. Surfing situations as a surfer. Yes, surfing over the waves. Having an eagle's view, awareness. And that's how we become all leaders. Because first of all, we are self-leaders. When we thrive and create, when we focus on thriving and creating, we become self-leaders. And then we can be global, active citizens who care, who truly care. And don't forget, this is a wonderful saying by Maya Angelou, your legacy is every life you have touched. I think, in my opinion, nothing else matters. So create and thrive. This is what I encourage you to think of tonight. Empowering young people to become active global citizens is one of my visions, main vision of my life. So artofjoy.gr is the website that reflects this vision, and you're more than welcome to enroll to our monthly Notes for Joy. They're also in Greek, so you have a choice of English or Greek language. So it would be wonderful if you joined our community and be an active member. I've also wrote, well, it's a year now, a year ago, when I was in India, I taught this book that I wrote, Speak Your Truth and Lead. It's empowering women to become compassionate leaders, because I find that women have a great difficulty in valuing themselves justly, and therefore not so able to develop their emotional intelligence skills. So this is my wish. May you invest time to get to see the sparkle that is hidden within you. I don't know how much time we have for questions or to discuss. I think there is some time left. I think there are about 8 minutes left. Correct me if I'm wrong. So I'm all ears.
If you had, can you give us, for example, some tips or how you would expect you to react today, given your experience now and your knowledge about yourself? And
For the question, Jorge, you were taking me back a long time ago, and now I will be looking at it with insight, because I used to be very embarrassed of this initially. So what I would do now, I would be very flexible to begin with, because each person has different needs. And what we often look at when we relate with others is their position. So for example, I would look at the position of Jane, the mother of 2 that I mentioned before, whose children kept being sick. Her statement was, Tommy is sick again. I'm sorry, I can't come to the office. That was her statement, that was her position. And I stayed at that instead of trying to find out what her underlying needs were. Maybe she was an overworked mom. Maybe she was finding the work that I was putting onto her lap too huge to manage, to handle. Maybe she wanted some time off. Maybe it would have helped if I was more flexible with her working hours. I was very inflexible, very rigid with Jane. That's the example with the mother. Now with the younger John, the younger graduate, he had just graduated from university. Again, my expectations of him were too high, but he was too young to be able to express what his needs were. And it was, in a sense, my responsibility as his manager to be able to have a calm, investigative, with compassion discussion with him to see how he's feeling, what is it like to be in his first ever job, is he finding it daunting? Is there some other task that he would prefer to be doing? Because it's always preferable to give people what they like doing, not what you think they should be doing. So these are a few examples, Jorge. I hope I have helped.
yes, thank you.
You're welcome.
May I ask you a question?
Yes, of course. Thank you.
Thank you. I think that I have missed the majority of your lecture because of another meeting, but
okay.
I'd like just like to reconfirm something. Very nice. You mentioned about the awareness of our emotions and how we should control our emotions, if I understood well, and this will definitely will increase and enhance our emotional intelligence. But what about, I liked also what you mentioned, that we should somehow we should gratitude ourselves for the good things that we are. We're not only doing mistakes, but I believe that we are doing something right, through our life. I would like to ask you, what is the importance of recognizing the emotion of the others during the emotional intelligence? I think that this is also very important, to be able to show this empathy or to have an environmental awareness of what is happening around us in order to establish this emotional link with them.
The key difference on my approach towards emotional intelligence is the complementary model of heart-led leadership and the self-leadership bit, which is missing from emotional intelligence. So I think that emotional intelligence is incomplete if it doesn't fit in with self-leadership skills. And the difference is that emotional intelligence is known to be focusing on managing our emotions. But my training as a neurolinguistic practitioner, as a mediator, and also having been on many retreats with Buddhists, learning how to meditate in a mindful way, and also being to India seeing, the Eastern mentality to emotions and how the brain functions, it is very important to be able to not only focus on emotions, but the source of emotions are our thoughts. So it's the mind that gets in the way of us being able to train and develop our emotional intelligence skills. So the first thing we need to be doing is focusing on clearing the subconscious mind of limiting beliefs, identifying our needs, our values. These are things that in emotional intelligence are not really in the literature, they have not been touched upon. And I think the new trend, as we saw earlier, for example, with the executive chairman of LinkedIn, Jeff Weiner, who was voted the most compassionate leader in 2020 in America, we need to be looking at self-leadership skills combined with emotional intelligence skills. So it's not managing the emotions, that's not the solution. It's actually being in control of our mind, our thoughts, and being in coherence with what our heart is saying, not in the sense of what it is that we want, but in the sense of heart coherence and what the heart as an organ we know now does. So please feel free to look up at heartmath.org. It's an institute that has been researching the correlation between the brain, our thoughts, and how all this works, and our heart as an organ, and what electromagnetic field it puts out, and what is the effect of our thoughts on the emotions and vice versa.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree with you, Alexia, but my question was like, this is, what did you describe, if I understood well, is like about us. But what about influence the others and motivate the others and how can I say, like inspire the others? I mean, we can control ourselves. I totally believe that our thought shapes everything. This is, 100% correct. So, but what about the others? I mean, if I'm interact with another one and I would like to convince him, and I can see that he's reacting, strange, or he's aggressive because of his thought or because of his disagreement. I mean, how I'm going to understand and interact better with his emotion, which is with his thoughts?
Okay, that's an excellent question. Now I understand your point of view. While I was being trained to become a mediator in September, I got to realize something that one of the best negotiators in the world has said. And this guy is called William Ury. He has written many books, and one of the best books, and he has a lot of TED Talks on this, so please go ahead and find them, is saying yes to yourself. So if you want to be a good negotiator, good at conflict management, it all starts with you. So it's the relationship with yourself that creates the response of the other person. So it's not the other person's needs, it's not the other person's thoughts, and you cannot control the other person, nor the behavior of the other person. The only thing you can do is control your behavior. And he gives an excellent example of when he was negotiating with President Chavez. This must have been during a dictatorship. Was it Chile? I'm not sure which country. Anyway, President Carter had sent him over to negotiate this. And he waited 4 hours to see the president. And when he accepted him, the president asked Bill, so have we had any progress with this matter? And Bill started saying, yes, of course. I think that everything is going very well at the moment. It will take some time, but it's going well. So then President Chavez got very, very angry with him, and he started shouting and saying, "What? Are you joking? They are liars. They are doing this to us. They are doing that to us." And he started going on and on and on and on for about half an hour. So at that point, Bill had a choice either to start arguing with him. And in fact, he was in front of the whole cabinet, his ministers, the president with the ministers. So he would have to argue with everybody his case, his stance, or to keep his mouth shut and get in a state of being up on the balcony, as we say, so an eagle's view of the situation, rather than getting into the emotion of trying to answer back and being treated not very nicely because he was shouting all sorts of things to him. So one technique that he did to keep himself present and also aware of the situation that was going on is pinch the inside of his palm. So this pinching of the inside of his palm is one of his techniques to saying yes to himself and just keeping within him, but also aware of what was going on. So he allowed the president to just have this outburst for half an hour. And then in the end, the president noticed the silence and he said, "So what do you think we should do, Bill?" And then Bill could give an alternative solution to this conflict that the president and nobody else in this room had thought of. So it all starts with us. And this was the whole presentation. This was the heart of the whole presentation, Costa. So the first part of emotional intelligence, self-awareness, self-knowledge, that is the starting point of developing emotional intelligence skills. And the other point I made very strongly was you cannot learn these skills just by sitting in a classroom or reading a book. It's like reading the best cookbooks in the world and expecting to be able to cook like a master chef. You have to experience these things, and it takes time and practice.
And mistakes.
Many mistakes.
Exactly.
Better, because they're not mistakes, they are feedback.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you for asking. Chat, I think we're over. This is it. This is the end.